All right, everybody, I'm back, and it's time to review for exam number 1, which is going to happen on Thursday of this next week, or this week when you see the video. First part of the test, I'm just going to look at it and make sure I've given you everything you need in order to be successful. The first part of the test really deals with just note identification. So let me get to my whiteboard here. We're identifying pitches, and there's a section where you do that with no flats or sharps, and then another section where we'll add the flats and sharps. But you want to be able to do it in two different ways. So one way is to identify the note on the page, and be careful with clefs. So in the instructions, it might say draw a treble clef first or draw a bass clef. Obviously, that changes the pitches. So you want to make sure that you're looking at the correct clef. So there might be a section where there's a treble clef that you draw in, and then some notes. And you're just going to identify the note. So down below, you'll identify that as an E. And in other cases, there'll be a line, or not a line, but a note name. And then you can draw it on the staff. And in the case of C, you could put this as middle C below the treble clef, or you could put it here. Doesn't matter. Any octave is fine with me, as long as it's actually a C. All right, so I think we're doing pretty well with identifying notes. That shouldn't be a big deal. Another section deals with rhythm, and there's two different ways to kind of test you for this. One way is to set up the staff and have you fill in the missing beats. So I'll just give you a couple measures of this. So in this example, we're in 4/4 time, so we know there's supposed to be 4 beats in a measure. And I've asked for either one note or one rest, and you just fill in the appropriate value in order to fill up the measure with 4 beats. So in measure number 1, we've got a half note, that's 2 counts, right? Quarter note, which is 1 count, so that would be beat 3 if we're going to kind of keep track, 1, 2, 3. So if we wanted one more note to fill up the space, we'd just put in another quarter note. All right? Second measure, we have a quarter note, a space, and 2 more quarters. So one rest that's going to fill up that space, which is in this case, again, a quarter value, quarter note value. A rest that would go in there would be like that. So it's just a matter of checking out the time signature, figuring out how many beats should be in a measure, what's missing, and what can you use to kind of fill up that space. So there's another section. Another way that we can test you for rhythmic values is to, and we've done this before in class, set up a rhythm on the staff here, and I'm just going to go small. I'll make it super easy. So no bar lines, and then we say, okay, go in and put the bar lines where they should go. And basically you just count. In this case, if I put a 4/4 time signature, you're just going to count to 4 and draw a bar line. So we have a half note, that's 2 counts, that's 3, that's 4, bar line. Quarter, 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 quarter rest, that's 4 counts, bar line, and then at the end we have a whole note, which is 4 counts. So like I've said before, you'll know something is not right if you get to the end and it doesn't add up, or if you have like 3 beats left at the end. There's no trickery involved. So you should always come out with an even number of beats in the last bar. And if it's not even, then maybe something was off earlier and you want to go back and just check your work. All right, so there's two different versions of note values. And I think that's pretty straightforward. We've done stuff like this. Certainly we've done a lot of counting in class, and those skills will help you in terms of filling out the missing rests or beats, or adding bar lines to the staff. All right. As I mentioned earlier, we're identifying notes without accidentals and some with accidentals. And we did this recently in a quiz in class. When you get to the accidentals, there's just two things I want to stress. So the first one is if I ask you to identify that pitch, when you write the name below, it needs to say B flat. So when we write the note on the staff, the flat sign comes first because we need to know how it's modified before we play the note. But when we identify the pitch below, we're going to say B and then flat sign. So B flat. And obviously the second thing to watch out for, once we get into kind of multiple measures, is something like this. And I'm going to try to add a couple curveballs here. That's a bar line. All right, so first note's a B flat. Next we have a half note on the same line. So we know that accidentals carry through the measure. So this second note would also be B flat. Even though it doesn't have another accidental, carries through the bar line. Then we have a C. This is a D, C, and here we have an A flat. Next note, because it's still in the same measure, is on the same space, it's also A flat, right? And it's tied over the bar line to this half note in the next measure. So because the half note is tied to the quarter note, they're literally on the same space, we're just adding to the value of that quarter note on beat 4. So we articulate on beat 4 and we sustain the note for a total of 3 counts. That's what a tie does. But also it means that this note is still A flat. But remember that because we've crossed over the bar line, and because this is really just tied to that note in that bar, when we get to this note, technically it should be A what? A natural. And as I said in class, sometimes they'll even give you a courtesy accidental. They'll do like a little natural sign in parentheses to remind the performer, hey, this note is A natural again because we've crossed over a bar line. And then the last note is going to be a G. So if that's, it's a little tricky. Even for musicians, sometimes we kind of mess that up, especially in the heat of battle. So just make sure that you go back and review that page on accidentals and are very clear about when notes are changed and when they're not. That's pretty much all you got to do there. The only other thing I would say is that we have this sort of extra credit bit where I ask you to identify enharmonics. And I'll just give you some, like an example here. So A flat and G sharp are enharmonics. They're two different spellings of the same pitch. If you look on your little paper keyboard, or if you have a keyboard at home, you can see, I think you can see mine over here. If I play, here's A, and if I go down a half step to A flat, we end up on this middle black key. If I start on a G and I go up or sharp the note by a half step, we end up on this middle black note, which is in this case, G sharp, right? So here's A flat, here's G sharp. They're the same note, but they're spelled two different ways. So those are the enharmonics. And I think I have it as an extra credit question on the test where I just want you to circle all the notes that are spelled differently but sound the same. The only one that's a little tricky might be something like a C flat. So here's C, there's C flat, which looks an awful lot like B natural, right? So it's any two notes that sound the same but could be spelled two different ways. Excellent. All right. The next part is very, very straightforward. It just deals with articulation. So we went over the different articulations, and I don't remember what page it's on in the book. Maybe I'll fast forward my video here as I look for this. But they're very concrete. So you just want to be able to match the articulation with its name. Oh, it's right there. All right. So page 30, we talked about staccato, which means short and disconnected. Accent, which is a note that's played louder than the other notes. Sforzando, which is a sudden, loud accent. Tenuto, which means that you're going to hold the note for, the book says full value, I say a little bit more than full value, kind of stretch it like taffy. And fermato, which is basically a hold, often conducted by the conductor in an orchestra. So I would say just be able to relate or to match up the name of the articulation with its symbol. And if you can do that, that's cool. You should have no problem. And then I guess before this, we did dynamic signs. So straightforward, we start, well, at the bottom, I guess, well, they don't do it in the order that I would do it in, but the softest is the pianissimo, the two PPs there. And then we work our way up. So we have pianissimo, piano, which is soft, the mediums, the mezzos, the mezzo piano, mezzo forte, then forte, which means loud, and fortissimo, which is very loud. So once again, just being able to identify, you'll see the symbol, like you'll see FF, which is fortissimo. And I would prefer that you use the Italian definitions over here, as opposed to just the sort of English description of what it means. It's better if you can give me the actual Italian name for those articulations and dynamics. We also did crescendos, decrescendos, and some of the abbreviations for that, which is fine. You can use an abbreviation or you can write it all out. Okay? So just make sure you check out page 28. Dynamic signs, you'll be asked to identify those as well. Cool. Hey, in class the other day, we did a little quickie lecture on form, and I basically said that I was going to use letters to indicate where we go in a composition. And we did three possibilities. So the first one was repetition, where you literally play the same section again. So this could be the first melody or theme of a piece, and then you just play the same thing. So that would be repetition. The second diagram here indicates variation, where we play a section, we play it again, but we change it. We add something, we take something away. If it's in major the first time, we do it in minor, which would be a variation of that idea. And then the third one represents contrast of form. So I think what's going to happen is you're going to see one of these things, and you're going to have to tell me, does it represent repetition, variation, or contrast of form? That's pretty much it. It's pretty simple, but I just thought I would put that in there. Cool. I'm going fast. I'm trying to make these as efficient as possible, knowing that you can go back and rewind the video and hear it a couple times if it didn't make sense. Hopefully, even if I'm being brief, I'm being accurate. Feel free to comment as you get the videos. I'm probably going to make a whole bunch of these today, so I hope it works. I think it will. All right, intervals. We're really doing basic identification of intervals right now. You could literally just count lines and spaces. Later on in the class, we're going to get into a more robust, experience with intervals. I'll try to keep it fun. It's maybe the most confusing part in the class, but I would also say maybe not even the most important part. But just generally speaking, right now, I want you to be able to identify intervals in the following way. So for me, interval just means how far from one note to the next note. Pretty simple. I'll start on an F today. So if F is the first note, whatever the bottom note is, we're going to call the first note. That's 1. And then whatever note I write on top of that or next to it, we're just going to count lines and spaces to see how far away it is. So if I go up there, we go space, that's 1, right? That's where the note is. Line 2, space 3, line 4, and that note is on the 5th line or space. So we would say that this C is a 5th above the F. That's the interval, or that's the distance between the two notes. It's a 5th. So when we label this, clean this up a little bit, we would call this a 5th. That's how far it is. And the other distinction that we made was between something being played as a melodic interval. So if I go from F to C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, F to C, we call that a 5th. And because we're playing them in sequence, one at a time, we call that a melodic interval. If, however, I were to erase the top note and put it right on top of the bottom note and then play them at the same time, now we have a harmonic interval because it's creating harmony. So it's pretty simple. When you see the notes written, are they written stacked on top of each other? If so, that's a harmonic interval. Or if I write them next to each other like a melody, then it's melodic. So you tell me how far by counting lines and spaces, and you tell me, is it melodic M or is it harmonic H? That's pretty much it. Hope that makes sense. All right, 2 more things, 3 more things, and then we will we'll be ready to go. I have a section here on notating rhythm. We did this in class the other day, and people kind of were a little bit scared, but did a great job. So if you remember, I gave you a setup, and it was like this. So I tell you the time signature, in this case 4/4. And then let's say I've got 3 bars and a metronome. And I'll make this example pretty simple. 80, I think it's still set from where we had it in class the other day. I don't remember who suggested 80, but there we are. All right, so I'm going to play a rhythm on the piano, and you're going to notate it. We've got 3 bars, and I'll keep it really simple and see if I can remember what I played. 2, ready, go. Cool. Do it again. Okay. So what did I play? Well, you can stop the video now and try to fill it out yourself, but I'm going to write the answer. And now I'll play it with the answer written here. 2, ready, go. Rest, rest, rest. Cool. So again, my suggestion is to set up your staff and maybe write the counting up above the staff. 1, 2, 3, 4, down the line. And the first time that you hear me play it, just mark when a note gets started. When does a note play? What beat does it start on? And just make a mark somewhere, maybe above the number. And then the second time, you can figure out how long does the note last. Is it quarter note, half note, whole note? And then you can start to fill out the note values. And then maybe the last part is where you still have spaces. Just double check, is that truly a rest, or did I miss? Was it supposed to be a half note, or is it really like a quarter note and a rest? Or like right here, we have a rest on beat 1. So first time through, just mark when the notes start. Maybe the second time through, think about how long does the note last. And the third time through, add in your rests to make sure that you're filling up all the space in terms of counting. So there will be some rhythm notation on the test, just like that. So keep working on those, and hopefully, yeah, I'm sure everybody will do just fine. All right, 2 more things, and then I'll be done with this little review for the midterm. Now, this one should be easy because we've been practicing this the entire semester, and it's identifying whole steps and half steps. So very early in the semester, I practiced with you, and we've talked about how the half step has that sort of ominous, you're going to get eaten by a shark feeling, especially when I play it low. So, oops, I played the wrong note. Right? So that's the half step. The whole step is like the beginning of a scale. So it's got a much higher second note, and it's the beginning of a scale. Even a minor scale starts with that whole step. So we have half step and whole step. And I'll play maybe 6 of these for you on the test, and you just have to practice, or tell me, is it a whole step or half step? So let me just give you a few right now just to kind of test your ears, and I'll move around the keyboard. Do I need to cover it up so you can't see? Here we go. Tell me, is this a whole step or a half step? That's a whole step. How about this one? Whole step. How about here? Half step. How about here? That's a whole step. And that's a half step. So hopefully you got all those right, and that feels more comfortable to you now. We've been practicing in class, so I got good feeling about that. I think everybody's going to do fine, identifying the notes, whole steps and half steps. All right, last thing to review for the midterm has to do with repeats, and we just did a video lecture on this yesterday. So we're looking to know how many measures would be played in the example. So I'll go back over here to the whiteboard. And maybe I'll do the most complicated one. So well, I don't know if it's the most complicated, but it is one of them anyway. So let's go DS, and we'll put a sign right there. Excuse my sloppy looking sign. So how does this one work? And how many measures would you play? Let's check it out. We're going to start at the beginning. Going to play 1, 2, 3, 4. First time you see a fine, you just ignore it. So we keep going. 5, 6, 7, 8. Now we have a DS, which means del segno, which means go to the sign. And technically, they would probably write dies al fine to let you know that you're going to stop at the fine, right? So here's bar number 8. We're going to dies. We're going to go back to the sign. That's going to be bar number 9. We're going to play to here, bar number 10, and then we're going to stop at the fine, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're going to dies, 9, 10, and stop at the fine. So the answer to this one would be 10 measures. Again, you can look in the textbook, the page that talks about text repeats, and review how those work. And I think if you have that figured out, you'll do just fine on the midterm. Send me your questions in the discussion forum. Let me know how I can help you, and I will see you in the next video.